It's time for you to be the you that you know you can be and define your mettle. My name is Preston Ewell, and I'm the host of the Mettle Mentality podcast. I'm a husband, a father, and American soldier. What is mettle? It's your strength of character that you rely on to endure hardship. It's your grit. Together we'll learn from some dedicated, passionate, mettle-minded individuals who define themselves by their grit and their graduation from suffering. Be mettle. Stay mettle. Welcome everyone to the show today. This is Mettle Mentality. I am your host, Preston Ewell. I am so excited for today's show. Today's guest is an awesome person. I'm so excited to have him share his story with you today. He is a trauma recovery expert, an advocate for adult survivors of child abuse, a world traveler, an international speaker, the host of the Michael Unbroken podcast, and author of the newly published book, Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma. Please welcome Michael Unbroken. Anthony, how are you doing today, Michael?
Man, I'm so good. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
No, thank you for your time. You're the one doing me the favor. I can't wait to sit here. I'm like going to school today. So I'm like, first day of school, man, let's do this. I'm excited. Got my new backpack, my new Velcro shoes, you know.
I dig it.
So tell us about yourself. Who are you as a person outside of what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, honestly, man, I'm a pretty chill, laid back guy. I know, like, typically in the world, I come out as pretty intense, and honestly, to an extent, I am. But for the most part, I'm a pretty regular guy. I like to go to the gym and read books and listen to music and go to the movies and hang out. And like, it's such a big part of my life is just relaxing, man. Whereas it didn't used to be. And I had to teach myself that, like, that's a part of self-care. And so trying to step into that, spending time with friends, traveling, adventuring. I love what I do, but it's exhausting. And so I have to be mindful that it can't be the only thing that I do.
That's cool. What is your closet passion? What's something you're passionate about, or maybe a closet talent that you have that you don't really share with people?
Oh man, I would probably, this is going to sound great. I love doing stand-up comedy, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've done it more times than I can count, but I'm not so passionate about it that I'm willing to, like, dedicate my life to it. You know what I'm saying? But on the occasion, so before I started public speaking, I thought to myself, what is, like, the most uncomfortable thing a human being can do? And it's stand-up comedy. It's to, like, go in front of a room of people with the intention of an expectation from their end that you get on stage and you have to make them laugh. And the worst thing ever happened, and I crushed it. And I did such a good job that like, there's a high, there's a rush to it. And I'm obsessed with comedy. I feel like, if we can laugh at the chaos of what life is, life's a little bit easier to digest. And so ever since I was a kid, I've loved it. And yeah, that's probably, I don't think I've ever mentioned that in any of the podcasts I've been on any of the interviews I've done. That's the first time. So that one's for you.
Well, thanks, man. Doing something right, I guess. What is it about comedy, the stand-up comedy, that you love? Like, you'd say that, is it the rush that you love, or is it you just generally like making people laugh, or what? What specifically?
So, all right, because I'm very self-aware, I'm going to keep it really real with you.
Yeah, please do.
Growing up, I was invisible, and I hate being invisible. And so, to me, there's something about, like, being on stage that makes me feel seen. The same as, like, when I'm hosting a workshop or speaking in front of people, like, that feeling of being seen is just, it's replacing something that I didn't have. The comedy aspect of it, I think, is very much tied into this idea that, man, life is so difficult, outside of the 23 hours a day that we aren't laughing. If you go to a comedy show, it's like an hour, you watch a special or whatever, but scientifically it's been proven, like, if you force yourself to laugh, you can change your emotional state. you force yourself to smile, you can literally change the way that your brain is interacting and interpreting events, right? It's the same. They did a study where if you hold a pencil between your teeth, it forces your cheeks up, and it will change the way that you are perceiving things because you're smiling.
Wow.
And so for me, I think it's very much about kind of, the world's a dark place, but it's also full of light. And sometimes I think we kind of sit in the darkness way too much and way too often. And for me, when I can get into that light and I can bring a little bit of joy into the world, and I would say that my comedy stylings are very abrasive. But for the people that get it, like, we connect really well.
Yeah, if I'm getting up and making people laugh, I think I love the idea of doing stand-up comedy, but I don't think I'm funny enough. I'm probably the funniest person I know, which doesn't say a lot. but I understand that. It's pretty cool, man. I think we kind of have a couple passions right off the bat. We both like to laugh and make other people laugh, and we love helping people. So cool. So I want to get right into this. Let's talk about some serious stuff.
Sure.
Something I find very important for all of my listeners to know about my guest is, what's your opinion on Bigfoot?
That's hilarious.
I told you I'm the funniest person I know.
My opinion is that there probably at one point was a Bigfoot. In the evolution of man from Neanderthals to now, there must have been. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I've gone hiking in the most remote places out here. I've never seen one. I'm very much like a need to see it to believe it kind of guy. So at this point, it's speculation at best.
So you can neither confirm nor deny, but
I
think you're just not looking hard enough. You're not looking for the right thing. Maybe he's just got too good at camouflage. Well, I don't know. I think
you have to actually go looking for Bigfoot, which I never have. So
yeah, I think there might be something out there, but I do not want to find out firsthand. I'll just take other people's word for it. Yeah, there's something out there, but I don't know what they're saying.
I don't know what I would do.
It would ruin me. Like, I love being outdoors and stuff, but I think I'd probably just be a hermit after that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up a Boy Scout, and I was constantly outdoors, and no recollection, no sightings. So I'm gonna go with does not exist.
All right,
I'm making a declaration.
It's fair enough. That's a good answer. All right. So, as a trauma recovery expert, right, that's what I'm calling you, because I believe that you truly are. I don't know if you put that label on yourself or not, but just from what I've seen of yours and listened to your podcast and stuff like that, dude's an expert. And what's your story? How did you earn this label that I've given you, I guess?
I would say that, like, from an experientiary standpoint, I'm an expert because I don't know anything better than that. And so, like, I'll take that connotation, but I would say that with a grain of salt. Like, everything I know about this is self-education through experience and through needing to go into a place of healing because my life was chaos. Elevator pitch version of this. So I grew up in Indiana. Mom was a drug addict and alcoholic. She cut my right index finger off when I was like 4 years old. Oh my stepfather was hyper abusive, like the type of dude you pray that you never meet. I mean, he would kick the crap out of my little brothers and I. I stand right now about 6'3.5", 220 pounds. He was about my size, so imagine beating up a child. I never met my actual father. By the time that I was 12, my grandmother adopted me and one of my other brothers because the violence in our house was so bad. I'd been homeless for a summer between schools, and we grew up in the Mormon church, so we were constantly being shifted around as, like, my mother was either in rehab or on a binge, or my stepfather, who was an over-the-road trucker, would just be gone. And my grandmother, so she adopts me after finding out I'd been homeless for all this time and living with all these Mormon church families. Well, I'm biracial, black and white. My grandmother is an old white lady from Sunbright, Tennessee, super racist. And the juxtaposition of this is we are in like an almost entirely black neighborhood. I go to almost all black high school. I'm not allowed to have black friends in my house. There's a copy of Mein Kampf in our house. My uncle is a part of the Aryan Brotherhood. Like,
Whoa.
it is insane. So like in my teens, I'm having an identity crisis. I start smoking pot when I'm like 12 years old, start drinking by the time I'm like 13, breaking into houses, stealing cars, running with guns, getting into fights, running from the cops. Really all the things that are indicative of things that you see in movies, and you're like, does that really happen? And you're like, yes, when you grow up in places like I grew up, like, that is real. Didn't graduate high school on time, and um, I had dreams of going into the military. Tom Berenger's film Sniper, I was like, yes, I want to be a Marine Corps scout sniper. Like, from the time I was literally 9 years old, I will never forget this. I was like 9 years old, sick home from school. That movie came on HBO, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. I go and I rock the ASVAB. Recruiters like, dude, you can literally do any job that you want to. Got to MEPS, and they're like, you cannot come in with your medical history, because I had asthma, I had allergies, I had wet the bed because of trauma, which I never understood bedwetting until Sarah Silverman's book that she wrote. I swear, I think it's called like The Bedwetter. You know, she wet the bed till her like early 20s. And I was like, okay, got it. So there's some trauma in there. Later, I would discover this to be true. And so I'm lost. I don't really know what I'm doing because I can't get it in the military. And I kind of floated around for a couple of years. I landed a job in corporate America because I was like, all right, the cure for poverty is money, right? It has to be. How else do you get out of this state? And so I'm like, I need to make money legally. I've been selling drugs since I was 12 years old, but I had saw my friends go to jail. Multiple of my friends had been murdered. I had been in handcuffs more times than I care to admit. Luckily, never arrested. And and so I landed this job in corporate America, working for a Fortune 25 company. Started making six figures at 21 years old, and that just like exacerbated the chaos of my life. I started getting stoned from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. I was drinking every single night. I gained 150 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like cheating on my girlfriends. I was staying out all night. I was like raging out of control. My anger was out of control. And when I was 26, on my 26th birthday, excuse me, my 25th birthday, I put a gun in my mouth and I pulled the trigger, and the firing pin did not strike the casing for whatever reason. I will never understand this. And that gun worked perfectly 2 days later when I went to the firing range. And so somehow, I have no idea how, I am still here. But you would think like that's rock bottom. That would have been like, okay, maybe I need to take a look at my life and make some changes. But nope, that wasn't enough. And so the chaos of my life just continued for a couple more years. The weight kept coming on. I kept getting sick. I was like drinking myself to death, smoking myself to death. Stress was out of control because I was a professional wedding photographer, and I was running an e-commerce business, and I was working 100 hours a week while like not taking care of myself. And I had this rock bottom moment where I looked in the mirror. I was getting ready to go do a wedding expo and show my photography and book weddings for the year. And I was buttoning up a size 4XL shirt and a size 47 pants. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, for whatever, it was just all of these dominoes were at falling for years and years and years. And I was just like, this is not the life that I promised that I would live when I was a kid. When I saw that chaos, when I experienced all the crap that I went through, I had said to myself, this will not be my future. And slowly I was turning into everything everyone ever said I would be: fat, lazy, stupid, a loser. And like, dude, I know like that's hard for people to hear, but there's truth in that. When you have to, when I reflected like on my past and where I was living up to everyone's expectations except mine. And in that moment, I was like, all right, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be healthy. Like, I don't care what it is. I'll move across the country. I will close down my businesses. I will go to therapy 3 times a week. I will join men's group therapy. I will learn how to do meditation, and I will get better about yoga, and I will eat right, and I will do all of the things And that was 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now. And today I'm happier than I've ever been, healthier than I've ever been. My life is great. When I wake up in the mirror, I'm super stoked about life. I am impacting the world in a way that I want to impact the world because, I speak the way that I think and I know that I needed to be spoken to when I was going through this journey. And the biggest thing over everything is that, man, I fixed my mindset. Once you can adjust the way that you think about yourself in the world, like everything else changes. And so I to answer your question in a very long way,
Oh, I love it.
my expertise came from, I'm going to read every white paper, every EPUB, every book on trauma, listen to every podcast. Dude, there were times where I would go to symposiums. I would be the only civilian in a room full of doctors. And they'd be like, "Oh, so where do you like practice at?" And I'm like, I don't. I'm just trying to understand this." And that was it. It was trial by fire. It was like, I have to figure out why. I'm so analytical. If you can tell me why X plus Y equals Z and give me a solid justification, I'm all about it. And so that was what I did. I decided to go deep and figure out what it is that makes trauma impact people the way it does as an adult. And I was only doing this for myself. I had no intention of ever doing anything like this. Think Unbroken to me was not even anywhere in the scope of reality. Slowly, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was just sharing some information I would find. I'd go, "Oh, that's interesting," or "This is interesting." And then I shared my story one night on Facebook, kind of a high level, and people were like, "Wow." People I've known for 15 years would reach out to me and be like, "Dude, my life was like that too," or "My mom was like that," or "My stepdad was like that," or "I've experienced that thing." And slowly what I noticed was relation and community and, dare I say, being a leader in this space. And I created Think Unbroken because I realized, like, broken is this connotation that's applied to people that have any type of mental disorder in this country. People look at you and go, "Oh, you're broken, you're screwed up because of things that happened to you." And I was like, I never felt broken. I just felt like nobody got it. I felt like nobody heard me or saw me. And and this whole mission is just about creating something that can help people empower themselves. Because, like, I know my story is crazy, I know my background is nuts, but the reality is, like, I can't change the past, but I can change the future. And I can live every day with purpose and with intention and with the reason of trying to hopefully, in some quasi way, leave an impact on the world so I am remembered, right? Because I think that being invisible for so long and I felt like a leader as a kid, and I wanted to join the military because I felt like I could be a leader, and that's why I played sports. That's why, like, on my wrestling team in high school, people called me coach, and that was because I was annoying, I'm sure. But right, to me now, it's like I think about my values and what the cornerstone of my life is, and leadership is one of my top 5 values. It's actually my number 2 value, because I believe that once we understand something about the world, I dare say it is our responsibility to share it. And so that's my story. That's where expertise comes in, and that's kind of how I am where I am right now.
That's incredible, man. Like, as you're telling me those things, you're saying that, and that I have so many thoughts running through my head. Like, I'm trying to put myself in that position, and no matter, I, I can't even comprehend what that would be like. And I just want to tell you just 2 thoughts that I had. I wrote them down. You don't have to be in the military to serve. You don't have to wear the uniform to serve. What you're doing is a valuable service, and you're helping other people in ways that members of the military don't get the opportunity to all too much. So that sense of belonging, I think you found it. that desire that you're talking about, that leadership. You are that person. I just want to say that I just feel like that's true. And the
Thank
other
you.
thing I wanted to point out, you said to this day, I still don't know why that firing pin didn't hit right. And I believe it's for this reason right here, what you're doing right now, this leadership role you've taken, taking your message, taking your mess and turning it into a message and helping other people work through this, because the sad truth is countless numbers of us struggle with trauma and we don't even know where to begin to deal with it. Instead, it runs our lives. It defines who we are. So what you're doing is you are changing the world. You're leaving that impact on the world. It's awesome, man.
Thank you.
So how long have you been, let's start here. Give us your best definition of what trauma is.
So I think there's a separation that, and this is my own understanding, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think there is abuse, and then I think there is trauma. And abuse is either the physical, mental, or emotional event that is occurring. I think trauma is the ramification. Trauma is the backside of that. Trauma is the way that it impacts you in the world and your life and the way that you move about day to day. And to me, trauma is, here's a great example. When a car door shuts, adrenaline pumping through your system, and you run to the window and look out of it. Because when you were a kid, when that car door shut, that meant that your mom or your dad got home, and you knew what that meant, violence. And at 27 years old, even though you're happy and you're safe and life is okay, this triggering event still happens. You hear a car door slam, you run outside to the window, you look, and you're like, oh, it's the neighbor, but your heart is pounding out of your chest. That to me is trauma, right?
Yeah.
It is the unresolved impact of the things that happened to us in the past.
So some things that would be completely benign to other people will take you back to a time in your life when you knew bad things were happening.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, think about it, like smells, music, a taste even, going down. One of the biggest reasons I had to, so I grew up in Indiana, like I mentioned, and I left Indiana almost 4 years ago, and I moved out to the Pacific Northwest. I live in Portland. And the reason was, and Portland wasn't necessarily where I planned on coming, it's just where I ended up at. But the reason I had to leave Indiana is because, man, I would drive down those streets and I would go past a place and I would have a memory and I would just be like, I can't. Like I would just get sucked into that, right? It's very much like a flashback, right? Suddenly I'm like in this event. And that to me is trauma. That's the ramification of the events that had occurred previously.
That's insane, man. I'm a lot loss of words right now. So how long have you been involved with helping other people overcome trauma? And when did you get to a point where you felt like you had a grasp of things that in your life, you feel like you were in control of your life? And then how long have you been involved with helping other people get through their trauma?
Yeah. Even though my life was chaotic, I thought that I had control over it, right? Even though in my 20s, like, even though it was nuts, I was like, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I think when I actually realized I was okay I think when I actually realized like my life was in my control and I was living it according to my wants, needs, interests, values, the way that I wanted to be was about 4 years ago. I'd been doing some work. I'd been taking it more seriously. I'd been like trying to be honorable. And it was when I made that declaration to like finally leave Indiana, that it felt like I was creating self-actualization. That to me, which is another one of my values, self-actualization is living your life in accordance with who it is that you want to be. And I think that is like the cornerstone. If you can just get to that place, dude, it's like nothing else matters. If you can wake up in the morning and you're living your life according to the way that you feel like you need to be living it, like that's the win. And then as far as when did I start helping people, I guess it really actually started helping when I first started sharing those first posts on Facebook. And it was totally unintentional. Like I said, I had no thoughts other than this is interesting. I want to put it out there. And it was when people started messaging me and being like, dude, that thing that you wrote, or that post that you shared, or that video that you put out there, it impacted my life. It changed me. I've even had people tell me that I've saved their lives. And like, I respect that so much, and I'm so appreciative of that. But like, nobody saves your life but you. And sometimes, like, I even think about this book that I wrote in my blog and my podcast. Dude, those are just tools. Like, I can give you the tools to build a house. I can't do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, yeah, I would say probably around then, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
No, I was like 27, 28 when I got serious.
Yeah. It's about when things got serious for me too. And I realized, started to have that self-actualization, and I'm still working on it, man. Like, this podcast is just like the beginning of me. And that once you find who you are, you just don't give a crap what anybody else says, what they think, because
Mm-hmm.
you're doing what's right. You found your character. You're relying on that. You're being true to yourself, and that's partly why I wanted to have you on the show, like, so I could learn from you, and so other people could learn from you. Because there's a little bit of a self-serving purpose in me doing this podcast. Is the people that I talk to, such as yourself, I want to learn from you too. I don't have anything figured out. I got some of the tools figured out, and I feel like I know enough that I can have a conversation with someone and share it with everybody else. And so that self-actualization is really what I hope to instill in the people who are listening to this, that find out who you are and live the life that you feel like you're supposed to. And once you start doing that, things start getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something like you're just figuring it out. Dude, so am I. Like, I guarantee you, in a year from now, in 5 years from now, in 30 years from now, I'm going to be a different person than I am right
Mm-hmm.
now. And I think that's a part of it. The biggest thing is going towards the things that feel honest to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that to me is self-actualization, just going for it, being you. And it's hard, right? And it's probably the most difficult thing that we do is answer the question of who am I,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Like, what's my purpose? Like, what? I thought for a long time my purpose was just to raise my kids and have them be productive members of society and try to not pass on the bad habits that I had, right? And that is an important part of my life, but there's a bigger piece to that, something that I've got to do for myself and for the world, and leave that impact. And I don't know, I'm beginning to understand what that is, and there's a sense of freedom that comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And purpose is tough, man, because sometimes I get asked, like, how do I know what my purpose is? And I'm like, I don't know. I literally, like, this was a shower moment for me, man. Like, like, I swear to you, one day I was just like, oh, got it. Light bulb went
Mm-hmm.
off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been doing so many other things leading up until that moment. And, I think that purpose is just kind of intertwined with what you perceive to be valuable for you and the way that you can impact your community and society. I don't know, man. Some people's purpose is like making tacos, and I respect that. And some people's
Yeah.
purpose is, being an astronaut. Like, I think as long as you are satisfied with the person that you are, like, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. And it's not even a destination that you arrive at. I think it's a process that, like, constantly evolving. Like you said, in 5 years, I'm going to be a different person, because that process is continually evolving. And if you feel like it's not evolving anymore, well, you're no longer growing, you're dying.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of how I felt in my mid-20s. I was just going and doing the same thing every day and just revolving around this chaotic lifestyle and then it did in turn, like, I started physically dying. I could feel my body withering away because I had nothing to live for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how can we become trauma informed as individuals, and how can we as society become trauma informed?
Dude, it starts with education. I mean, look, I think that the elephant in the room of mental health care right now in America and Western culture, probably most of the world, is child abuse. Nobody talks about this shit because it is terrifying and it is dark. And as adults, my case, I'll give you, I was like, oh, I'm better than that. That didn't bother me. That didn't affect me. Reality is it did, right? And if you have some kind of semblance of an idea that you were somehow hurt or abused, traumatized as a child, like the most important thing that you can do is start with yourself. Go to find, whether it's a therapy or a NA, SA, whatever A it is that you need to go to, a support group, join a Reddit board, a Facebook group, read a book. Just start identifying whatever it is that's happening in you and start to understand it better, because trauma is something that's generational, right? It's passed down. And I think what's incredible about 2020 is that we are now a generation of people who are at least open to the idea of creating change. We have entire generations of people in American society who fathers would not hug their sons or say I love you, or they would come home from work and drink their beers, and that impacted their kids, and then that leads to us, right?
Man,
We
it's
know
a
about
paradigm.
yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
And so, now that we have the society of people who are, 25 to 40 years old, who realize that there's something in the system that's broken, who are willing to put in the work and the effort on themselves, by proxy, that impacts the world in a better way. As a society as a whole, how do you do it? I was thinking about this the other day, and I was doing some research about how to submit a bill to legislation, because it dawned on me, like, people get more prison time for fighting dogs than they do for beating the crap out of kids.
What? Is that
And
true?
yeah,
I did not know that. That makes me sick to my stomach, man.
yeah, dude. I mean, and the other thing I was looking out the other day was like, okay, how do I file at least a police report against people who hurt me when I was a kid? Even though it was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I think that people still have to be brought to justice. And so part of me thinks that, like, how do we create legislation? How do we create bills, and how do we impact the world? And because you have to go through this rigmarole to get to the point where anything ever starts, and it's going to take too long for that to happen. So as a society, I think it is the way that we educate ourselves and to create growth is, even though it's dark, and I'm not saying this has to be what people do, because I don't know it necessarily is, but from my perspective, I think that we have to share. We have to tell the stories, because when we look at child abuse as a whole and trauma in this country in general, it's swept under the rug. Dude, I remember going to school in like second and third grade covered in bruises, and my teacher just being like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." That's not good enough.
Mm-mm.
Every kid's going to say yeah,
Yeah.
because they know when they get home, if they say no, it's going to be much worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I came by that honesty. Like, I learned that, right, firsthand. And so, I think that at every opportunity for us as adults, like, we have to step up. We have to protect those that can't protect themselves. And we have to call to arms, and really go hard against the people that have done us unjustly, because there are people right now in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our church groups, in our gyms, who hurt children, and nothing is happening. And so, the more that we can bring light to it and give kids, I don't even really know that there are adequate safe spaces for kids to even get out of those situations, because oftentimes, they're put into either foster care or care of relatives or care of the state. And it's even worse. Some of the darkest events of my life happened around foster care, right? I wasn't in foster care, but I was in homes of people who were foster parents, and it was dark. So, there's a lot of this to me is the hardest question to answer right now, because to me, it seems like it's so easy. Like, let's talk about it. Let's create legislation. But then, like, knowing society, it's about money and funding, and how do we actually do that? But, and sorry, I'm going really long here,
No, I
but
love it. Keep going.
I
Keep
think
going.
the number one thing that we can do is just kind of like bring light to this. And I know it's dark, and I'm not saying everyone should, and I definitely don't think you should if you don't have the support to do it. But man, I'll tell you this, the first time I put my story out there and I was serious about it, even though I'd done the work, been doing the work, going to therapy, doing all the things, when I put that out there and I put that on Facebook and I hit post and my heart like exploded, and I was like the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I felt just the weight of the world come off my shoulders.
Why do you
Like,
think that is? Why do you think you felt that way?
because we carry so much by ourselves. And especially as men in society, and I know women do too, but specifically as a man, because I am a man and I can't speak as being a woman because I'm not. I'm taught growing up, don't cry, don't be emotional, don't hug, don't don't do anything but be a
Don't say I
man.
love you. Yeah, like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
And then, emotions had literally been beaten out of me. I thought that I was a sociopath for a long time because I didn't cry for 15 years
Wow.
because of the abuse that happened. Every time I got beat, it was, if you cry, I will hit you harder. And so, like, or, this one, I'll give you something to cry about. And to me, like, that doesn't build a society of strong men. That builds a society of psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
And so, keeping that deep down inside, like, I realized like it was manifesting and harbinging the darkness in me, and I put it out into the world with no other expectation other than I have to put this out because I feel like it's eating me alive. And I think the reason that it felt like such a huge relief, do imagine carrying the darkest secret of your life for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. So I was looking on your Instagram profile, and I went to your website you had on there, and there was a video uh, by a man. I don't remember his name, but he was talking about for your book, and one of the things he said is, you're really good at explaining why we live the lives that we do. And I was like, I have to hear the answer to that. Why do we live the lives that we do? The way we do, I
Because we
should
don't
say.
have a choice. I don't know, man. I think that when you consider the fact that we kind of just are always figuring it out, I don't know that there's a choice. I think that we just kind of step onto the field and we put on our helmets and our cleats, and we know that there's some semblance of a time and some kind of score that we keep, and there's no head coach and there's no playbook and there are no rules, and we just go, okay, I guess this is what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that for a really long time until this thing called intention comes into your life, and then you start to live, instead of this I don't know what to do, you live a life of this is what I am going to do. And so I think until you come to this place of creating intention and purpose, this is different than purpose coming to you naturally, in a shower moment. It's purpose that you're manifesting, whether it be anything. I'm not even going to give you examples, but it's just like you have to sit down and go, okay, what do I want my life to look like? And to me, I write goals for my life that are non-negotiable. I have a list called the Get Shit Done list. And
Love it.
that list
Love it.
contains things that are not negotiable. These are things that have to be accomplished before I die. No ifs, ands, or buts. There is absolutely no excuse for them not getting done. And then I have goals that I set for each year. So December 30th, I sat down, wrote all of my goals for this year. And then on December 31st, I wrote all of my goals for January. Because we have to be like, if you want to be intentional about life, you have to know in what direction you're moving. People often think to themselves, oh, my life isn't the way that I wanted it to be. Well, did you make a game plan? Right?
Yeah.
And since there isn't one, and since there is, you are your own head coach, you are the team, you are the GM, you are the cheerleaders, you are the everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that, like, you have to live your life as such. And so you have to be intentional about from the moment that you get up to the moment you go to bed. I don't think that necessarily means like I have to be an entrepreneur and start a business and I have to be a NASCAR driver and blah, 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 whatever that is. But I think that it does mean, okay, what kind of father do I want to be today? What kind of brother do I want to be today? What kind of friend do I want to be today? What kind of lover do I want to be today? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creating that intention around everything that you do. Because without it, you're just like floundering. You're just in the water, just swimming in circles because you don't know what to do, because you haven't assigned yourself a task. Go do something.
I like that. Assign yourself a task. And if you don't do that, you're just wishing. Like your goals are not goals; they're just wishes.
Until you write something down, it's not real.
Yeah, there's truth to that. I agree with that. There's
There,
something about writing things that makes things happen.
there is. There was a study done by Dominican University, and it showed that when people write down their goals, they are over time 50% more likely to achieve them.
Did they find out why? Like, why is
It's just the human connection, because it's there. It's, you know, you put it out into the universe. You can read the study. I don't want to misquote it, so I'm not going to do that. But look up the Dominican Republic study about goals and writing. And so I think the other piece of it is your goals have to be somewhere visible. And so my goals are in two places: on the refrigerator, because I'm a big dude. I'm like 6'4", 200 pounds. I eat a lot of food. And then they're on my bathroom mirror, because they need to be there. Hell, half of me is tempted to tattoo some of them on my arm, just so I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do that one.
on that get shit done list, right? So it's there
Yeah.
every day, no matter what. It's never going anywhere. Just like your commitment to it's not going away.
Yeah, and it's a step at a time. It's like a brick at a time, right? You know, you can't climb a mountain without like getting to base camp and like putting on your shoe, right? And I think about like the path that my life is on, and like I'm only just now like putting a shoe on. I don't even have it tied yet. Like the things that I want to accomplish, like I'm not even close to doing those things, right? But if I rewind 10 years ago, there were no goals, there was no ambition, there was no intention, and my life was in utter chaos. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a control freak. You don't have to control every aspect of your life. You have to be able to just live. But are you living with purpose? Are you living with intention? Are you living with passion? Are you creating those things? People just think that you show up and one day you're like Kobe Bryant. No, that dude has like intention around every single moment of the day, right? And I think that if you want to be successful in life, you have to be. I mean, like you probably will relate, like being in the military, you know what your mission is. It's given to you. You have an objective. But in civilian life, which is the vast majority of people, outside of work, there's no mission. There's no goal. There's no dossier with the instructions. And so I think that if you want to be successful in life, like you got to create that.
Yeah. So if we're gonna go to this military uh, way of looking at it, yeah, you'll have your mission, like what is to be accomplished. But before you go out and start trying to accomplish that mission, you're training continually for years before this. You might have this you get called to your mission you're going on, right? And you're training all the time, and we're forming relationships with all those things. And I think if you can look at your life experiences as training opportunities preparing you for a mission rather than a victim of circumstances or happenstance, you're preparing for something greater.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the in order this is my own opinion, in order for you to live a life that is sustainable, you have to get out of the victim mentality. Like, look, bad stuff happens to people. I'm sorry. It does. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to move through it. I'm not saying you have to get over it. I'm saying you have to move through it. And that's by any means possible. Because as long as you're playing the victim role, guess what? That's what you are.
Yeah. So how do we get out of the victim mode? And how would you recommend to someone right now who may be suffering because maybe they've been a true victim of something horrific and have trauma? Like, where do you begin?
Yeah, you have to get to the place where you can put those pieces of the puzzle onto the shelf that they need to belong, right? One of the things that I think people need to really take seriously is this idea that when you step into mental health care, it is care, it is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, like, people here, I'll give you my own example. I, in most of my 20s, was like, okay, I'm going to have sex with as many people as possible because when I was a child, I was molested. And because as an adult, that thing happened, I'm going to use it as an excuse to be an awful person to my girlfriend, to partners, to random people that I meet. And I'm going to use that as an excuse. And I had to make a declaration to myself, and it is the way I live my life. No excuses, just results. And I knew, like, looking at the person that I was long term, that's not who I wanted to be. I don't want to be this person that is inept because of something that happened to me in my past. This is like, to me, and this might sound odd, it's like getting fired from a job for someone else's mistake, right?
That's a great way
I
of
think
putting
we
it.
can I think we can agree that that's not fair. So it is not fair to yourself to be an adult who now has agency, who now has the ability to make decisions, who has the whatever tool in your toolbox to create health and growth and sustainability, to blame what is happening in your life on your past. It's easy. I'm not saying I haven't done it, because I have. And I know what it's like to sit in bed at night and to be depressed and think about killing yourself and hate the world and blame everybody for everything. But guess what? That's why you're in bed doing those things, because you're blaming everyone for everything. And I'm not saying people don't have blame and they don't deserve blame and it's not people's fault, but you can't do anything about it. There's no time machine that's going to allow you to go back in the past to make this thing not happen. And so in order to continue to live your life, you have got to put yourself in a position where you can create sustainability. You have to come to this place where you can acknowledge the fact that something bad happened to you and go, yes, I know this happened. And you have to feel the feelings involved with it. And sometimes it invokes some really dark stuff. And once you do that, you have to be willing to step up for yourself in a way that you never have before. Because the reality is, your agency was stripped of you when you were young. So what I was saying is, I think that it's important that whether or not, things that negatively impacted you in the past happen, like, you have to be able to put yourself in a position to create health and sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is ultimately your responsibility, because there's nothing about your past that you can change, right? When your agency is stripped of you, when it is taken from you, your mindset then invokes this thought that I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not powerful enough. You have to change that mentality. Your mindset is everything in this process. And so to go from victim into hero mode, you have to tell yourself that you are allowed to do that. You have to
Mhm.
put yourself in this emotional and mental state that is about being strong and willful and powerful, while also acknowledging, yes, bad things did happen to you. I'm not saying sweep these things under the rug. That's insane. You can't do that. What you can do is find help. What you can do is find support. What you can do is find community. And you can wake up in the morning and write in a journal every single day for the rest of your life, if that's what it takes, that says, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, I'm powerful enough, I am capable of living a life that's happy and sustainable. I am proud of myself. I love myself. I am good, right? Because ultimately, what we have to think about is that the brain is very malleable. It is very plastic. That's the same reason that at 40 years old, you can learn how to play the piano, or at 4, you can learn how to ride a bike, or at 60, you can learn a new language, because the brain is willing to adapt and change and learn. That's what it does. That's a survival mechanism. That is why we are still alive, because we have survived. And as survivors now, one of the things you have to think about is like, am I going to be inundated by my trauma, by my past, and blame the world for where I'm at? Or am I going to use what I have to be a survivor and then bash that into your skull again and again and again ad nauseum until one day it clicks? And then you're like, got it.
That might just be the most powerful thing I've ever heard. All that, like, blown away right now, like mind blown emoji. Like right now, just picture that. If you're listening to this, picture a mind blown emoji. That's me right now. Like I don't even know where to go from here. Like that is so powerful that we are in control of ourselves. And from you said something about heroes, that to go from to become a hero. I can't remember exactly what you said. You got to do the work, right? And I think that to get to hero mode, you have to be your own hero first.
Yeah.
You can't be a hero for somebody else if you're faking it to yourself.
Yeah.
Not for very long. You're gonna. That's people see through that.
Yeah. They do see through it. And more importantly, what's the point? Why are you going to, like, at this point, what do you have to lose by trying to, I don't even want to say that. What do you have to lose by being who you are? What do you have to lose by being completely honest and vulnerable and real about who you are? Yeah, in the process, you're going to lose some friends. You might lose a relationship. You might completely change and have a 180 and wake up in the morning and put your feet on the damn ground and love yourself. That's way better than staying in bed every night and blaming the world. I would rather, and I love my people, I love my friends, I love my community. I would rather lose all of them than to hate myself because I was faking it.
And I think most of us fake it at some point in time. We're faking it because
Of course.
that's who we want to be. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved, and we don't know how to love ourselves. So we put on a mask of who we think we are, or who we
Yeah.
want other people how we want them to see us.
Yeah.
We're people pleasers, right? Everyone's going to go through a phase like that, I think.
Of course. And that's one, it's societal. And two, we are so concerned about what other people think about us. The reason that people don't start, the reason that people don't go through, the reason that people like myself end up being 350 pounds, hating the world, being mad about everything, is because I didn't love myself, because I was putting on a front. I thought life was about money and excess and things that didn't actually matter, because that's what society taught me. And then I came to realize, like, oh, that's not actually true. Life is about being satisfied with who you are and the people in it. And I think, there's the old adage, fake it till you make it. And I would disagree. I would say you go for it until it changes, until it is
Yeah.
what you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you show up as the person that you're trying to be, like that goal, if you're showing up in the moment as that, you are that person then. And it's just a matter of consistency. Are you consistently showing up as the person you're striving to be? And when you can
Yes.
say, I'm consistently showing up this way, that first goal you made of where you want to get, you've made it. And then it's time to
Yes.
set it, okay, I can be better, because we can always be better. And if we're not trying to be better, we're being worse.
Yeah.
There's
And
no, it's progress or regress.
Yeah. And I think in that process too, you have to remember that you're going through changes. You're growing. There's adaptation. There's assimilation. You're going to battle your shadow self. You're going to battle the person that you used to be. I put it like this, man. At 28 years old, in this moment of complete breakdown, when I went and looked in that mirror and I decided to change, the old me, like I metaphorically like killed them. I was like, this person does not get to exist anymore.
You're dead to me.
100%. No, really, because
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like this person is an adaptation of chaos and they are a harbinger of death. And I was like, this is not who I want to be. And so because of that, I was like, okay, this person can't exist anymore. And that person creeps up sometimes. And even though that was a long time ago, I have these moments where that old Michael taps me on the shoulder and he goes, hey, what's up, buddy? What are you doing? How's life? Let me see if I can interrupt you. And in that moment, I go, oh, but I have all these tools that I've learned, that I've explored, that I've created, that I've put in my pocket, in my community, and therapy and support and journaling and everything to keep that at bay, knowing that even though we step in to create this change, like that old you, we are an accumulation of all of our experiences leading up to this very moment. And so it is not unacceptable or unreasonable to understand and believe that our old self will rear its head from time to time.
Yeah. We are something I've kind of picked up on and began to understand this past year is I am not a sum of my failures. What I am is a product of the lessons I learned from those failures.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some math play words there. Sum is the total, the addition. Sum would be the multiplication. And I think that's kind of goes along with what you're saying.
And I don't think failure is a bad word.
No, failure is the greatest teacher there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's what we do with that failure.
It is what we do. And it is because of those lessons that we learn that we can be who we want to be, right? If it weren't for some of the craziest, darkest experiences of my life, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't learned from those lessons, if I hadn't like implemented those in my life, because it's adaptation. Again, it comes just to the human brain machine that it is. It's survivalism. It's a mechanism. Our brains are so plastic for a purpose. If you put a fork, which I did do this is not a joke. When I was like 6 years old, I put a fork in an electrical socket because I was very curious. I did that one time.
You learned, right?
So I learned.
You're not a dead arm, numb arm from, or you're not an electrical shock. What you are is someone who became smarter from doing something stupid.
Exactly. That's how I think about failure.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that's how, if we can look at failure that way, rather than, I did something stupid, therefore I'm stupid.
Yeah,
that's not accurate. It doesn't make
self-talk is everything.
And I think that's, I'm still in a quote from you here, that we are the stories that we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If we tell ourselves we're stupid, that we're a failure, then we're a failure.
Yeah. Think about it.
We are what we tell ourselves.
I think about it like this, and this is hyperbole, but just imagine you're walking down the street, and every day you have to walk to work. You go past this street, and all the signs say danger. But you walk down that street every day, and every day you get hurt. How long is it going to take until you stop walking down that damn street?
That's your choice.
And that's negative self-talk. How long are you going to continue to talk to yourself in these awful ways until you make a change? Look, we talk to ourselves worse than we talk to any other person. And I don't know about you, but the things that I used to say to myself, if someone said them to me, I would punch them in the face. And I'm nonviolent. You know what I mean?
I've said awful things to myself.
You have like that. I'm going to come back to a point earlier. You're talking about how do you not be the victim? Start there. Change the way you talk to yourself.
So my next question was, what are some action steps that we can take to overcome trauma and start beginning our own recovery. And I think that might be the answer.
Yeah, no, I think it's like, it is the number one most important thing, like the self-talk that we have, because we have to be our own champion. Nobody else can do it for us. And when you are in this place of always being negative, your life is going to be negative. I'm not saying you have to be positive all the time, because that's not realistic. But I think that you do have to speak to yourself in a way that is affirming and not demeaning. Like, I used to call myself stupid, ugly, fat, all of those things all the time. Even right now, it makes me sick even to say it. And now I'm like, no, I'm smart, I'm handsome, I'm capable. Like, and that's what I believe, because I have force fed my brain to the point that that is how I feel. So I think that you start with self-talk. Find a way. Here's what I would challenge people to do. Every day, just take a piece of paper, put it somewhere you can see it, and every day write one sentence about something that you love about yourself. Every day, until you get to the point where you're like, I don't need to do this anymore because I feel good. And then I think you have to, some people will argue therapy is good. Some will argue that it's bad. I don't care either way. Find support. Find somebody that can help guide you through understanding your thoughts, through understanding your past. For me, I've done every kind of therapy you can imagine. And I'm dead serious about this, from like Gestalt to EMDR to NLP. I guess that's not really therapy, but tapping therapy. And I've done men's group therapy. I've done trauma therapy, all of them, just trying to make sense of my past. And my past, I understand, is a little bit more in depth than most people's. But build a team, build a community of professionals or a community of people who are experts, and leverage their expertise to help you understand what has happened and understand perhaps why you behave the way that you do right now. Support groups are great for that. That's like, if you have no money, start there.
Go to
support
AA.
group.
And
Yeah.
even if you're not an alcoholic, go to a recovery meeting. Because what that is it's a bunch of broken people fixing each other. And it seems to be the only thing that works is group support from people who are in the same position as you to be able to get to a point where you can have some stability in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm still broken. Like I feel like I'm broken at times. Like I know I'm not, but at times I do things that demonstrate that I'm broken. But it's what I do with those pieces. Do I let them sit on the ground? Or do I stomp on them, make them smaller? Or do I try to pick them back up and put them back together?
Yeah, we got to put ourselves back together, man. If you've been shattered into a million pieces, it's going to take a long time to get put back together. I think the other really key piece of this is you need to exercise your brain and your body and eat well. Because if you are inflamed, meaning that, i.e., you're drinking too much, consuming too much sugar, too much processed foods, you are what you eat is an adage for a reason. If you eat like crap, you will feel like crap. That will make this process much more difficult. Eat better, sleep better, go to the gym, go to yoga, do CrossFit, climb a mountain, walk around your neighborhood for 20 minutes a day. I don't care. Do something. And I think the final piece of it, and I don't think there's necessarily an order for this, but the final piece that I would say, and probably for me, and this is just my experience, the most important thing that I do is I write, I journal, I get the crap out of my head and onto paper. And some people go back and they read their journals. I've got dozens of these. I've never read them. I just need it out.
Well, we were talking about writing and how when we write things, that's when things begin to change, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the way that human brain functions. Would solidify something, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to read that study, and maybe I'll do an episode on it. Talk about that. Maybe we'll do another one. You've got a vast knowledge of information, and I feel like we've just barely scraped the surface of stuff that you have to offer that could benefit so many people. And I'd be honored to have you back on. I've never been so moved emotionally and inspired to grow more than I already have than through this podcast, these interviews that I've done, than I have with you. And I thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
There's one last question I want to ask you before we go. If the next 30 seconds, whatever you said, let's imagine that every single person in the world would hear you and understand what you were saying, what would you tell them?
I love this question. I got 30 seconds. The most important thing that you can do is show up for yourself. Nobody can live for you. Nobody can breathe for you. Nobody can love for you. Nobody's going to make you wake up and put on your shoes and run. Nobody's going to make you eat well. Nobody's going to make you be the hero of your own story. Nobody's going to fix the past for you. No one's going to make your life better but you. If you want to be sustainable, if you want to be happy, whatever that means, if you want to live life in accordance with what you believe is true for you, you've got to step up for yourself. No excuses, just results.
Can you see my face right now? Man, that is so powerful, man. If you're listening to this, you can't see I'm crying right now. That's so true. It's the most powerful thing I think I've heard in a very long time. You got to do it for yourself.
You do. Man, it's so hard. I know it is. And on paper, it sounds like, oh yeah, cool. I'm just going to start doing it. But that's like literally what you have to do. You just have to start.
Just start. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time. You got your book coming out. It just came out 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, it did.
It's called, well, we talked about, what was it called? Why don't you tell everybody what it's called, where they can find it, and how they can reach out to you if they want to find out more information about you and make you a part of their community to grow.
Yeah, it's called Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma. It is a book that I wrote because it is the book that I needed when I started this process and it didn't exist. It is more of a guide. A very, very small portion of it is about me. The majority of this book is about the concepts, the mindset structures, and it is like a practical guide in the sense that you have to write in it. Like it was built out to be an exercise manual. And you can find that book at thinkunbroken.com/paperback, or it's on Amazon, paperback and Kindle. It's at Barnes and Noble. It's like everywhere. So you can find Think Unbroken. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Michael. Actually, I'm everywhere at Michael Unbroken.
Awesome. Well, I really hope people take this opportunity to reach out to you and learn more of your story. I will be reading this book and working through the workbook. Let's do this. This is my suggestion. I'm going to buy your book, do your workbook, and when I'm done with it, let's talk about it. Have you back on.
I would love that.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, dude, this has been phenomenal. My life truly has been changed. The insights that I did not anticipate receiving today. I feel enlightened. I feel motivated. I feel inspired. And I feel, honestly, if anybody else has got 10% of what I'm feeling right now, that's a win. And I appreciate you for being a part of this mission of mine to alleviate the suffering of others, find their worth, rely on their mettle, define who they are, redefine who they are. You truly are an inspiration and hero to me. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. It's absolutely my pleasure. It means the world to me that you'd give me the space to share this crazy story of mine.